All right, what's going on, everybody? It's I'm looking at the podcast episode. This is number 138, and it's been actually a while since November of this last year. And my hair's crazy on the podcast. If you're watching the video, if you're not watching the video, just listening, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I've taken a break for a while because, as I tell people, sometimes I just don't have anything I want to share or nothing new. And I love podcasts, but the podcasts that I've um, veered away from over the last year or so are the ones that just not a lot of new content. They post every week, but just not a lot of new content. I'm always looking for people with some new content. So I've just kind of been in this season of laying low for a while and working on other things, working on other projects, been really, really busy. But something's been on my mind here the last, I don't know, a couple of months I thought I would share. And it's tied in directly to something in my own life that I'm doing. That I'm learning a lot about that I think applies to therapy, that applies to executive coaching, etc. And that is, I decided back in March to hire a running coach. And I'll tell you why. But first, let me tell you, like, I've never had a running coach in my entire life, except when I was in high school. I ran high school track, ran the hurdles, and of course, we had a coach. Got out of high school, and I'm the type of person I just kind of ran 2 or 3 nights a week consistently, probably 2 to 3 miles, not much mileage. In fact, I've told people I've probably run 2 to 3 nights a week ever since I was 12. Just always have loved to run. Running's a part of my life. And over the years, I've started to run more miles. And I've shared, I ran my first marathon in 2006 at the age of 31 and fell in love with long distance. And since then, I've started to increase the distance. I've done 50Ks and trail runs, and got really into trail running and 50-miler trail run, and then did the 100K trail run, and then did the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim trail. It's not a race, but I organized it with some friends and just kind of worked my way up, and then got to the Javelina 100-miler in Arizona last November, October 31st, November, and I said, this is it. I finished this race. I'm not giving up running. I'm just not going to do any long races again, or not for a while. But if you've ever run, you've heard this story. People run a long race and like, I'm done. I don't want to see my running shoes. I give up running. And then the next day they're like, it's not so bad. So this last year, an opportunity came up for me to enter a lottery based on my finish, meaning I finished the race at Javelina, scored some points, and was able to enter the lottery for the UTMB, which is the Ultra Trail Mont Blanc race that starts in Chamonix, France, goes through Italy, goes through Switzerland, ends in Chamonix. It's 106 miles, or 32,000 feet of climbing. Pretty brutal race, but it's kind of the, how do you want to say it? It's like a bucket list item for people if you can get in. And the only way to get in really is if you're an elite runner or a pretty amazing runner with lots of finishes behind you and 100-milers that year, etc. Or you enter the lottery. You somehow get some lottery points based on certain races, and you enter a lottery. And there were, I think, about 26 to 28,000 people enter lottery this year. And I got in. So I'm one of, I think, a little over 2,000 runners running this year. And when I got in, I had a decision to make. Am I going to do this race or not do this race? And I decided I couldn't not do it. I'd have more regrets if I didn't enter the race. But I knew instantly if I was going to do it, and this was a conversation I had with my wife and with my friends, that is, I need to hire a coach because I don't know what I'm doing. Like, yeah, I finished a 100-miler and some 100Ks, 50-milers, coaching myself and putting together my own programs and learning things along the way. But to go over to Europe and to run this long race through the Alps, I would need help. I would need somebody who has experience, not only coaching athletes with that distance, but in that environment, and potentially has done it themselves. So I reached out to an organization pretty well known in Colorado called the Carmichael Training Systems, and put my information in and was selected to work with a coach. Corinne Malcolm is her name. You can Google, look her up. She's an amazing ultra distance runner, holds some pretty impressive times and fastest known times, and all around great athlete. And I just started thinking about that. And so I started with her on March 14th. So we're about, I don't know, as I'm recording this, it's July 22nd. I haven't done the math, but I think we're about 14 and a half weeks into working together. Have about another 8.5 to 9 till the race. And I've just learned a lot about myself in this process that I thought was just helpful stuff that I wanted to share with you. And really, those of you who know me, who have worked with me in therapy, or those you know me worked with me in executive coaching, I think this hiring a coach in trail running has been a good mirror, a good reflection on what I hope a person experiences when they come to therapy with me or they do executive coaching with me. And if it's not me, with other people. And so I want to point a few elements out that I'm learning about myself, that I'm learning about the importance of bringing along a guide in your life to help you through times. Now, I'm hiring a physical coach, like a training coach. There's also comes with this coaching program. I've also talked to someone to help me with my diet and my nutrition. So nutritionist along the way, Jennifer McDaniel, who's been really, really great. And I have another, I have a sports chiropractor, like therapist I've worked with for many years, Ron Trebendis and Trebendis. I can never say his last name right. Sorry, Ron. Over at the Performance Sports Medicine, Sports Chiro over in Plano. He's kept me on my feet for like all these years. So I have a team around me. And so I've hired people along the years. I've worked with therapists along the years too, to help me with my own therapeutic work. I've hired spiritual directors to help me. I always tell people who come to my office, do not work with a therapist who's never done therapy themselves, who does not know what it's like to sit across from a therapist on a couch, number one, and two, who's never done their own work. So I've hired guys, I've had that experience, but I don't know if I've actually sat down and reflected on maybe some of the principles. And so this has just been an interesting season for me. And so I want to point these things out for you, because maybe there's something in your life right now that you're going through, or that you'd like to work on, or like to accomplish. And you might be at the point where you want to hire someone. And again, I'm going to speak directly to like therapy and executive coaching, because those are the two areas that I work primarily with. And I have experience in those as a practitioner, but also this could be someone like me, who's wants to hire a coach for a race or for lifting, getting stronger, or they hire a yoga instructor, or maybe you need a spiritual director, a guide to walk you through a season of life. But these are just some things I wanted to point out and kind of talk about just here for a little bit, and see if it resonates with you. And that is, number one, hiring somebody to walk you through a season of life or to guide you, I think equips you and brings with it a plan. You have a plan. There's usually like some kind of process in place. When I hired Corinne, I knew she would come with a plan. And so every week, every couple of weeks, well, every day really, I open up my Training Peaks program that has all the training I'm supposed to do. And she has it in there. This is the distance I'm supposed to run, or really the time I'm supposed to run today. Here's the type of workout I'm supposed to do. So there's a plan. I'm not wondering what I'm supposed to do. And there were a lot of days when I was training for races, like I had outlined stuff in Excel, and I was building kind of a block of training. But sometimes I just didn't know what I was going to do, or didn't feel like it. I'll get to that later. So there's a plan in place. There is a sense of ease and like non-anxiousness sometimes that just comes with having a plan in our life. In my case, it's a running plan. In the case of someone who's coming to therapy, and I do this sometimes, I don't always do this. It depends on what the person wants when they come in to see me, is that, when a person comes to my office for the first time, I always follow up with them via email that day and write out and say, basically, hey, based on our conversation, here's what I heard you say. Here's kind of the goals that you were thinking about. Here's the goals that I'm thinking about. Here's what I think the best next steps are if we were to move in this direction. And here's some initial homework to kind of get us moving. So here's a plan, right? And you can't see me if you're listening to this, but I kind of think about like a box. Here's a box, and inside that box, there's a plan. But within that box, there's some movement we can shift and move around. So when you work with someone, a plan should also have a certain level of flexibility to a degree. You can't sometimes vary too much. I can choose in my training right now to sometimes contact Corinne and say, I think I might need an extra day off this week because my body just needs some rest, and we can be flexible with that. Or can you adjust the time constraints on my training program this week because I'm going to be out of town? So there's some flexibility, and we can adjust, but you don't want to veer too far off, right? Because if you veer too far off a plan, you can find yourself down the road way off course. And so there should be a plan, right? And so when I work with someone in therapy, if your goal is to work with having less anxiety in your life, there should be some type of plan that I should have to come alongside you and say, if you do X, Y, and Z and you practice these things, we should get to a place at some point where you experience less anxiety. Or if you're working on relational issues and you want to work on your marriage, you actually have a plan to say, here's some things that you can do for yourself and some interactions and tools you can bring in terms of communication or interactions to have with your spouse that will help you improve your relationship, whether it's a marriage or a parent-child relationship or a friend or whatever. There should be a plan in place. And that plan should bring a certain level, again, of ease and non-anxiousness. And I think a level of confidence that this person has either guided people down this road many, many times before, or has also walked this path with themselves to know that this plan works. So in the case of therapy, I've been doing clinical therapy since about 2006, like in the office with people. So I don't know what is that, like 16 years sitting in an office doing therapy. Probably really started in about 2005. And I've been doing like pastoral counseling kind of in the sense that people come to me for guidance farther back than that, probably, I don't know, late 1990s, 97 probably. Got my first experience in doing some intensives with family when I was a college senior in an internship program, and having families come into a house and do some work with them. When I was fresh out of college, I worked at a university and guided students in how to transition from high school into college and the whole admission process. So I've experienced what it's like to help people go through a plan. Over the last 4 years, I've been involved with a lot in executive coaching and coming alongside of an executive, and they have some ideas about how they want to grow, or I have some ideas about how they can grow to help in their organization. And so here's a plan. Here's how we want to attack this thing. Here's some tools I'm going to bring forth. Here's some practices I'm going to bring, but here's how I'm going to guide you along. So, I can't beat this over my head and communicate this enough to all of you that hiring a coach, whether it's an executive coaching or athletic coaching or a therapist, a counselor, right? Coming alongside of maybe pastoral counseling, a spiritual guide, spiritual director, that part of the process involves there is some type of plan in place. And yes, there's flexibility, and sometimes we can get off the plan and move in a lot of different directions, but there should be this idea that this is where we are today, and this plan will take us to where we want to go. So wherever you are in your life right now, you may have something that you're trying to work on or navigate through. It might be a difficult time. It might be just a new goal in your life. And you might be able to do it on your own, but it might be the type of season right now where you need to hire someone, some type of coach, some type of therapist to walk you from point A to point B to point C and on and on and on. Or you might be in an organization and you're trying to move your organization from this point to the next point. And it may be time to bring somebody in to help you do that. So having a plan is really important. That's something I've just learned. Man, it's so great to open up again my Training Peaks app and to know this is the plan from when we started in March to August. Here's kind of the overarching plan, and then get into the weeds of here's like the weekly plan, the daily plan, and here's all the things that it's going to involve. So having a plan. Number two, hiring somebody brings a certain level of accountability. Like I'm pretty disciplined as a person, and I don't really miss runs even when I was my own coach. But to know that I have a coach looking at my training log and noticing if I'm missing some days, or noticing if I'm not keeping a certain pace, or noticing if my fitness is falling off, I can't say enough about that. just having another set of eyes on it, and just that level of accountability. I noticed that it just increased my, I don't know if the word's desire or just level of intensity to want to go out and really do well and not slack. And I think the same should be true in therapy and executive coaching as well. I try to give homework to people and, and say, hey, I'd like you to bring this homework in next time. Let's talk about it. So there's a certain level of accountability. Now, the number of times people come back and say, well, I started the work on the way over, to your office. And I'm like, that's okay. Life is life. Life gets stressful sometimes. I'm not going to grade you on whether or not you're doing your work or not. But I think if you really want to change in life and you want to accomplish some things and you hire someone to help you, that the biggest piece is that accountability and knowing that someone is going to hold your feet to the fire. And that's probably something I expect a little differently in athletic coaching than I do when I'm doing therapy work. One, I want to hold people's feet to the fire to a degree, but I also know people are struggling with some mental health issues that can keep them from doing certain things, right? And so I want to be really, for me in therapy, a lot of times very gentle in my level of accountability with them and grace-filled, where sometimes I might have a client is like, you got to get on me and just confront me with some stuff. And so I might say some different things to a client, like, this is the third week in a row you haven't done something. So, accountability is huge. Just having somebody that tracks your progress, that you feel a certain obligation and responsibility to do some things. I had made some notes and I was thinking, I think what I've noticed about accountability for me is that it increases the level of discipline. Now, again, I mentioned I'm a pretty disciplined person, and I think for some people who aren't as disciplined, having accountability helps them increase discipline in their lives. If they're already a disciplined person, then I think it just maybe amps it up probably a lot. And in some cases, having a plan and a coach or a therapist or executive coach to help you keep you accountable, they may need to help you kind of back off a little bit. Maybe you're overly enthused or overly disciplined. So I think it increases discipline. I think having accountability and a plan when someone you're working with can help correct things. Sometimes we don't have eyes on things. We can't see things ourselves. But when you hire someone, it's like a mirror reflecting back on you that gives you feedback on what maybe you could be doing better, what you could be doing more of, what you could be doing less of, how you could tweak things a bit. Even some of the notes, like yesterday, I went out on a run and my coach says, this is an easy recovery running. And sometimes I've been really good about taking things easy. My ego takes over wanting to do things a little faster, even though I'm not that fast of a runner. And one of her notes said, keep this super relaxed. And so the whole time I ran yesterday, I just mentally thought, okay, keep this super relaxed. And for me, that meant like being able to breathe and just keep calm. And I think it was the first run I truly had that was just easy recovery. And it was just a simple little note from her, a simple little correction. And so I think that's really helpful, and so when clients come in for me, for example, if you're working in a therapy setting, and we'll talk about something during the week, I can say, well, this is what I'm hearing. Have you thought about trying it this way? And just kind of correct. Or for example, if I'm in an executive meeting with some executives and I'm watching them interact, after the meeting, I can pull a person aside or I can pull the team inside and say, hey, here's what I saw. Here's my observation. Have you thought about doing it this way? And so I think the accountability piece is huge in correcting. And then again, the thing I put under accountability too, and this can have its own section, is that it gives you lots of practice. When you know you're being accountable to something, I think you're more likely to follow through on something, like just practice things. I think that's part of the discipline, and again, these are kind of just all flow. A coach, a therapist, an executive coach, they come towards you with a plan. That a plan increases the level of accountability. And because there's accountability there, you're more likely to follow through and be disciplined about it. You're more likely to get feedback and you're more likely to stay on top of things and to practice things. So I've noticed plan's huge for me. Having accountability is huge. The other piece that's been huge for me and just having a coach is just the level of encouragement. Sometimes the encouragement comes via email and just some words that my coach may say. Sometimes it comes via text or like a funny emoji or something. Sometimes the encouragement comes versus some feedback she gives on my training log. Sometimes encouragement has been her pairing me up with some other athletes. When I was running in Colorado a few weeks ago, she paired me up with an athlete of hers in Boulder, guy by the name of Jeremy Scanlon, amazing runner. And just that level of encouragement's been huge. And so I think when you hire someone, yeah, they're to help keep you on plan and help you achieve a certain level of accountability that will move you towards success. But I think you should receive some encouragement. And I know there's an old school thought out there that, that you hire a coach and should be on your case all the time and just, beat you over the head with it. But I think that gets old after a while and it doesn't work for most people. I think a coach also has to be kind of a therapist, right? Someone who come alongside and encourage you in some ways and poke around inside your head a little bit and kind of figure out what works for you. So I think I appreciate the level of encouragement. And I hope that if someone, hires me as a therapist, another therapist, or hires me as an executive coach or another executive coach, that they also get encouragement. Kind of like an atta girl, like, good job, like, keep it up. Like, here's what you're doing really well. I think that's huge. And I think when you're doing something over a long period of time, you're going to have periods where it just gets rough and things don't go well and you don't feel like success. And so you need that encouragement. I've noticed, 14 and a half weeks in, I struggled a little bit here emotionally, mentally, physically, and it's nice just to have encouragement along the way. And that's something I think if someone's trying to change something in their life and they're working in a therapeutic setting, it gets really hard. And you need that therapist or counselor just to say, hey, here's some things you're doing really well. Good job. And I think that's just really important to pay attention to. And I think that's important to pay attention to in an executive coach setting in a business where sometimes businesses aren't that great at encouraging people or pointing out their strengths. I'm tripping over my words today, people. That's what happens when you don't record a podcast in a long time. And then the last piece is just hiring a coach, a therapist, executive coach, working with a spiritual director. I think they can help you access resources and tools that you just don't have privy to or that you're not aware of. One of the things I've noticed about therapy is just I have lots of books that I mention to people that might be helpful to read based on the stage of life they're in. I have lots of tools, digital tools that might be helpful. Might have some videos I want them to watch or podcasts to listen to or some practices that may be helpful. And they don't know until they come into contact with someone who can direct them in that path. And I've experienced that. There's lots of resources in the running world that I'm aware of. And there's some that I'm just unaware of. It's been nice to have a coach say, hey, try this out or read this article. Or the nutritionist that I'm working with sends me some articles and say, hey, why don't you read this about, how many calories you need per hour when you're out on this, endurance run. Or here's some information about this type of food in terms of fuel. That's been super helpful for me. Or I'll email my coach and say, hey, I'm thinking about using, this headlamp. What do you think about this headlamp? Will this work for long distance, overnight running? Or what size pack do you think I need at UTMB? What size is too big? What size is too small? And so she's been great about saying, here's what I think would be helpful for you. And like any good coach, if she doesn't know or he doesn't know, my coach will contact someone else and ask them or ask one of our other athletes. So a good coach, a good therapist, a good executive coach should not only provide you with the resources and tools, but they should also maybe help connect you to a network where you can access other tools. A good coach is not in my experience, what I've learned, a good coach, a good therapist, a good executive coach, they're not closed off and possessive. They want to give away as much stuff as possible and equip the person as much as possible, and to be able to access networks of resources and tools as much as possible. I'm fond of saying to people, like, you don't live life in the therapy office. You just don't. You need to be equipped with a plan and to have practice and to have a certain level of accountability. You need to be encouraged, you need to be given resources and tools so that at some point you can do all of this on your own, right? Or go out and do things on your own. You know, I've hired Corinne for this race, UTMB, going to do a couple little things after it. And then I may take a season, not off of running, but just not training. And whether I have a coach during that time who will just guide me kind of in the off season, I don't know yet. Or I may not have a coach for a little bit and just take some time off. But when I'm ready to ramp back up for training, I'll hire a coach again. And I see the same thing kind of with therapy or executive coaching, is that we go through different seasons and we need to move in a certain direction, and we need a guide to help us do that. And so we hire someone to come alongside us that can, again, provide a plan. And with that plan comes a certain level of accountability that I think increases discipline and can help correct things, and can give you lots of ways to practice ways of like moving through the world in new ways. That person should also be, I think, a great encourager as well, and then provide you with resources and tools that will connect you to, I think, a network of people as well that you can grow with. And I have some people I work with who we go through seasons where we do a lot of heavy lifting, I would say, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. And then we kind of back off it, but I'm just kind of always around in their life. I'm kind of a coach that they have on hand, that they use throughout the year. And I have some people in my life like that. I kind of see my chiropractor quite a bit off and on throughout the year, but more during heavy seasons of strength training and running. Right now, I'm all in on the coaching right now, the trail running coaching. And a lot of you who've worked with me, I've seen you weekly for probably months at a time, maybe some of you for longer than that. And then you're in a really good place and you're like, I think I'm good for a while. And then I might see you, once a month or every few months, or you just might shoot me an email or a question. And so it takes on all kinds of shapes and forms when we hire someone to come into our lives and to walk alongside of us. And so I'll close by just saying this, and that is, like I said, I'm sharing this because I've learned a lot. And I'm sharing it because I want you to think about your own life right now, where you're at. Is there something in your life right now where you want to grow, either physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, or in all those areas, or some of those areas? Or maybe you're stuck and you're not wanting to necessarily like intentionally, proactively move out of this situation, but you have to move out of the situation. Either place you're in, you might need to hire someone to come alongside of you, some kind of coach in some area, therapist, executive coach, athletic coach, nutritionist, talk to a spiritual director. There are so many people that you could access who could help you in the situation you're in. But I think in hiring a person, I think it's a huge decision, because I think that person should be able to come with a plan, bring the accountability, the encouragement, the resources to help you get to where you need to go. So I just wanted to share that with you. I want all of you to know too, I've taken some time off here the last 5 or 6 months from recording anything. And I've just been in a season of trying to grow in my own ways. Right now I'm sharing about just trying to grow physically through this trail run I'm doing. But in doing an endeavor like this, I'm growing emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It's really taxed me at all levels and really having to grow. And in the process, what I've learned with hiring this trail running coach is I've had to contact other people to help me in other areas of my life, because everything's kind of come to this crescendo with all the stress in this season of trying to get to the starting line of UTMB. But I couldn't do it alone. All of us need people in our lives. All of us need guides. All of us need coaches to come alongside of us. And so whoever you are, think about where you're at, and then look around and see if there's anybody in your life, in your world, that you can contact to help take you to the next level, to help guide you to the next level. And just think about the next step. Don't worry about the idea, I got to hire someone the rest of my life. Just think about the next step. This is where you're at today. Where do you want to be a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now? And think about who that person might be, again, that you can bring into your world to help coach you to the next level. All right. Well, I wanted to share that. I have a lot of different ideas in my head. I'm going to be sharing some stuff here a little more frequently, get back into the rhythm. But thought today while I was, sitting here reflecting and taking notes the last couple of weeks that I wanted to share that with you. Hope you're all doing well. Hoping you have a good summer so far and talk to you later. Bye.